Okay, so I'm going to try and record this without coughing because I've come down with a bit of a cold. And last time I sort of ranted in a way which I didn't feel as though I could convey my point that I wanted to talk about, which is, growing up with suspected autism. I think where everything started was when I was 4 or 5-ish, when I'd learn how to walk and speak. I'd get my brother to talk for me, and I wouldn't say anything. I just let him talk. I just sort of look at him, and then he'd say something. It's like my mum, if we wanted juice or something, he would say what he wanted, and then he'd look at me, and I'd say what I wanted. And then, he would tell our mum what I wanted. I never used to speak around certain people. And sometimes I would come down at night when my mum was alone, and I'd talk to her on the sofa. That's the only time when I'd speak. Of course, I sort of grew out of that because I realised, I have to speak, Another thing which I noticed about my childhood was my lack of fine motor skills. So you could give me a mug or a glass or a cup or something, and I would just drop it because I had no fine motor control. And I couldn't reliably catch a ball until I was 10. And so we had to have cups, plastic cups, for a while because I kept dropping them. There was also a social element to things as well when I was younger. I didn't have a filter. I was brutally honest, and I was very literal. I still am quite literal. There are some times where I can determine whether someone's being sarcastic, but it's not 100%, and I often get it wrong, and then people have to correct me even though it's obvious. But yeah, that's something that's happened a lot, and that sort of prevented me from being very social. I also when I used to get overstimulated, I would flap my arms and clear my throat constantly, and clearing my throat in class and flapping my arms around would get me in trouble. I remember this distinct period in my life where I would write down my name in my school notebook, and then I would pretend to be an aeroplane for the rest of the lesson and that. I think as well, I also had this sort of very strange, sort of introspective mindset from a young age as well. And I was always thinking about stuff and obsessing about certain things. I used to love Brum, which is a British cartoon show, and I was just obsessed with Brum because he was so cool, And I was also I was obsessed with mechanical things, but not in the sense of gears or wires or whatever. More so subjects where there were clear delineations, I liked that sort of stuff, and I like looking at diagrams as well and stuff. I don't know. I've had a few hyperfixations in my life, and I don't know. It's hard to describe. But growing up this way, with potential autism, I guess, or like suspected. I'll say suspected because that's probably what the title's going to be. Like, I did a lot of weird things where I couldn't socialise very well. I wouldn't look people in the eyes. I'd look at the ground, or I'd say things that I wasn't supposed to say. And so these things made me feel weird, and I was bullied for being weird a lot. And so I started not doing things because I kept getting shamed into acting a certain way. Like, I stopped flapping my arms around. I stopped being completely honest with people. I tried not obsess over things as well, because that was bad. I shouldn't do that. And I sort of sublimated all of those things into like pacing. I'd like pace back and forth or in circles for hours, because that was relatively acceptable. I thought that I was just weird, for like most of my life. I thought, oh, I'm just weird, I'm a fucking weirdo. But then, of course, I started like reading up on things, and I was like, oh shit, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, that kind of explains things. And I met a lot of people when I was at uni who were autistic, and they sort of like hung around with me a lot, and I hung around with them. And they were just like, yeah, you're probably like some form of autism. And I felt a kindred spirit in them, because they would do things to similar ways like I would do things. And that felt like, oh, where have you guys been, I guess. I don't know. I won't get soppy with this at all. I'll try not to. Although I have a tendency to cry very easily. But yeah, like, I spent a lot of my life feeling weird, and it caused me a lot of strife, to be honest, because there's so many things I wanted to do but I couldn't do, because I felt like I wasn't allowed to do it, because I felt like I'd make a fool of myself. And I spent so long like building up this like social persona as well, of somebody who was relatively serious. Sorry. Yeah, someone who's relatively serious and never smiled, and was kind of edgy, and cynical. When that's not the truth. I just did that to like protect myself. Like, even at a young age, I started behaving more mature than I should have, or I wanted to, because I felt that as though I had to. And that messed me up a lot. Yeah, I there's a lot of other things that happened in my childhood which are not good at all, but I felt like that was one of the main reasons why I feel as though I didn't have a childhood, because I grew up too quickly, because I felt like I had to. Okay, I'm back. But no, like, yeah, it's only now that I've done a bunch of reading and met a bunch of people that I've sort of started to accept things. Like, I've accepted that I don't like certain sensations, and so I avoid them. You know, it's like, I don't have anything, I don't have any stickers on me, or any, like, you know, clothing which feels uncomfortable on my skin. It's like, I'm not going to tolerate something which makes me feel sensory discomfort anymore. And I'm not really going to give a shit about how I act towards people. Most of the time, I'll try not to, you know, because I have a tendency of like zoning out in a conversation and using the same responses every time, and it's gotten me in a lot of trouble. Or I'll like go on autopilot with my speech and I'll say something or agree to something I didn't mean to because I'm really not listening. You know, like, and usually I say, oh, excuse me, and that annoys people, but to be honest, I'd rather people be annoyed than have to keep up the charade my whole life. Another thing I've stopped doing is I've stopped smoking cigarettes and I've stopped drinking coffee. Because smoking for me, partially it was like the chemical effects of nicotine. But also it's like, oh, this makes me feel hardened and mature. If I smoke, then I'm not a weirdo, I'm just normal. Do you know what I mean? And same with the coffee. Like, I don't drink coffee anymore because I don't need to. I drink tea a lot now. That or hot chocolate. Usually. Yeah, like, sorry, I keep having to like stop the recording because like a lot of this stuff is very heavy. A lot of this stuff is very heavy. Of course, I'm not going to say everything in detail. You know, maybe in some other videos, like, I'll ramble about details and stuff or whatever. Just like get them off my chest, I guess. But like, yeah, it's a lot more detailed than I'm making it out to be, and it does affect me emotionally, so I apologise if there's like weird cuts in the audio, because I just have to like pause this for a second and like breathe. Yeah. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to anymore, I guess. Deep breaths. Alright. That's a very liberating feeling. I feel a lot more comfortable in myself and my personality. You know? Even the idea of making a channel like this as well was inconceivable. Like, earlier on, even in this year, because I was like, nobody wants to hear this shit, you know? Like, why would I describe my experiences in such a raw manner? Why would I create like such low fidelity art or whatever you call it, you know? But I've stopped caring. So I think, like, the older you get, the less you the more you realize that a lot of things just don't matter. And I spent far too long caring about how other people think I should be, I guess, or how I should behave, or where I should be in life. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna end it there. I think that's sort of. I don't know if I've got the message across that I wanted to send, but yeah, that's sort of roughly what I've been thinking about a lot recently.